Hey y'all, no filter here. Welcome to my PCT through hike, almost through hike, gear video. This first gear video that we're going to do, I'm going to talk about my shoes, my clothing, and some of my miscellaneous gear. And that'll be the first video. And then later there'll be another video that comes out that talks about the big three: the tent, the backpack, and my sleep system. So for now, I hope you enjoy the first video, and just want to make sure that y'all know that I don't have any sponsors per se for any of this gear. This is just after I did my due diligence and bought gear to do the trip. These are the selections that I made and some of my takeaways from using it. Welcome to see your comments, feedback, questions, and we'll do what we can to help you some answers. So with that said, let's get on with the video. I hope you enjoy it. It's kind of boring. It's not like being in the field, so enjoy, and thanks for watching. Hey y'all, it's No Filter again, and I'm here to talk about my experiences on the PCT with shoes. And so let's get started. Kind of like to do this chronologically from when I started. So keep in mind we started in March and things were pretty cold and pretty snowy. But I still had hopes I'd be able to use my trail runner. So I started out on my Salomon trail runners. These are the shoes I had. They already had some miles on them when I started, and I put about another 150 on them when I started out the trail. But it became pretty apparent that I needed to switch because the snow was somewhat problematic, and I wanted to have a little bit more substantial, a more substantial shoe for my feet. But these are very good. They have the this tie system where you don't have to lace it per se. You just strap it up and tighten it, and it's real easy to tighten and adjust as you go throughout the day. So very much recommend these Salomon trail runners. I loved them, and I actually have another pair down in my room. So at Paradise Valley Cafe, after about 150 miles, I switched to the Salomon hiking boot mid-level, the X Ultra 04, and these are waterproof, and they worked really, really well for me. It gave me the support I needed. It worked really well with my micro spikes, and I got good mileage out of them, really good performance. You can tell there's still a lot of tread left on them, and these had close to, over 500 miles on them. And I guess, walking in the snow is one of the reasons it wasn't as tough on the tread, but these worked out great, very comfortable. And it was not a problem with me with respect to getting wet or anything. The gaiters that I used were water resistant, and they did tend to wet out on me. And some of that water then transferred into my shoes, but overall, things still worked out really well for me. So I wore these up until Kennedy Meadows. We took our 7-week break at that time. And even though I still had a lot of life left in these boots, going into the Sierra, I wanted to go ahead and start out fresh and not be having to change out my shoes partway through that next series of passes and things. So I just went ahead and started out with a brand new pair of the same shoes, just a little bit different color scheme. And these went for about 550 miles with me. And you can tell there's still decent tread on these. They held up really well. And again, the performance was fantastic. I switched to a different gaiter. I don't have those here, but it was I believe Outdoor Research, and it was a taller, went up most of the way up my calf. They were very lightweight. They were waterproof, but it was a very thin fabric. But that did help keep the snow from melting and causing moisture down into my boots. And I really liked them, but they did, with my crampons, they got beat up a little bit because in the snow cups we were falling and all kinds of stuff was going on, and so my crampons actually tore them up a little bit. So that was a problem. But the boots did great. They did really well. Very happy with those. But what I had done then is when we bounced forward, I had planned on switching to some topos that I had previously purchased and were in my inventory. So I had a box sent to Said Valley, and I sent these boots back home. They've got plenty of life left in them. And I had topos waiting for me at Said Valley. So I put those on and started out with those. And I like the shoe because it's very comfortable. It's very lightweight. It has a really good toe box. It's very wide and it works well. So even a size 12 regulars, I have plenty of room in my toe box, where my size 12 Solomons, I always got those in a wide, and it gave me more room, made it more comfortable for my shoes. But what happened is, coming out of Said Valley, we ran into some pretty rough terrain, and these started to delaminate on me after about a week. The front end rubber is kind of like glued, if you will, to the front molded toe. It started to come loose, and then after about 200 miles, 250 miles, it was really opening up. And by the end of the time, I got ended up with 300 miles on these things. You could tell. I mean, my fingers are going right on in there. They were wide open. It was smiling, and the tread was still really good. And up in here, everything was fine, but they just blew out. I was picking up rocks, debris, and everything else, and it was just driving me crazy. So that got me to Leavenworth, and excuse me, not Leavenworth, got me to Bend. Went into Bend to the REI there, bought a new pair of Salomon hiking shoes. They didn't have the trail runners in my size, and they didn't have the boots in my size, but they had the equivalent of these in the hiking shoes in my size, in the 12 wide. So I got those. I kept one of these shoes, the Topos, because I wanted to bring it back home. A good buddy of mine, Charlie, is professional photographer. He does an excellent job in taking pictures of objects and giving something visual and meaning for people to extract from those photos. So I wanted to keep this shoe for him as an example of some of the things that go on. So I start out from there in my new Salomon shoes. I was really happy. I felt comfortable. And we got to Cascade Locks. And at Cascade Locks, we got a ride up to my sister's in Hood River. And I'd already sent a pair of shoes from my inventory at home, Topos, that I was going to use from there for the balance of the trail. So they were already waiting on me, and I'm wearing my new Solomons. So what I did is, when I got to Hood River, I went ahead and sent my camp shoes home, and I decided I would carry the Topos as my camp shoes, and that way if the Solomons didn't get me all the way to the Canadian border, I could just fall back on those. I didn't want to be caught out there in the middle and have an issue, because it was going to be, that would have been about 700-ish, 650 miles on my Solomons. I didn't want to, put myself at risk of having shoes that had failed on me. But about 200 miles in with my Solomons, the strangest thing happened is they started to tear on both shoes, started tearing right across this edge right here. I don't know if it's because of this motion or whatever, but they both started to tear. And then they tore a bunch, and I was getting debris and rock, sand, pebbles, water, and everything else in there. So I went ahead and decided I would start hiking in my Topos. But I was in the wilderness, didn't have really good access to replace those, and I didn't want to carry them. It was going to be 100 miles before we took out at our next point. And I had an opportunity to pitch these in a trash can in a public area. Not these, but the other Solomons. And so I took pictures of everything, and I called REI and I explained what happened and said, look, I'd like to be able to apply for credit and send in the photos and stuff like that. And REI was very clear. They said, no, our policy is you have to bring the shoes in, or you have to get to some place that you can mail them and mail them back to us. And then they would evaluate it and decide if we get credit. So I explained again, look, it's only 2 weeks into this. I was getting product failure. I don't want to carry them 100 miles. And then when I get to the next town, have to go find go to a post office or get an Uber to a post office or whatever. Again, I'm an entitled hiker. I didn't want too much extra level of effort for what I had to deal with. So REI was adamant that they would not allow that. They wouldn't even, I offered up, I'd just carry one shoe and send the other one. They said, nope, it's got to be both shoes. So they escalated it on their internal team to no avail. They said, nope, this is what you got to do. So I was pretty exasperated with them. I let them know how I felt about things. And what I decided to do is I made sure I had what I thought pretty good pictures, and I pitched the shoes. And then when I got home, I reached out to Solomon, explained my situation, and filed a warranty claim online. And they looked at the warranty claim and they sent me back, basically a rejection letter. Rejected. But basically saying that, anything purchased through retailers like REI and stuff, I needed to process my claim through them. So I called them again because I don't think the person I had spoken to on the phone originally understood my predicament and what was going on. I pleaded my case, and they escalated it again, and then they came back and said, we understand, and we're going to offer you some leniency on this one, and we'll go ahead and credit you for those shoes and let you get a new pair. So Solomon, thank you very much. You really you stood behind the product, and in fact, I've already processed that credit and got myself a new pair of shoes, and of course they're Solomon's. But that was really really helpful, and I do appreciate that. So to continue the story, I'm now wearing my Topos again, the new pair, and they started to, guess what, delaminate on the front. And that was within, again, a week. They were starting to delaminate, and I was like, man, this is frustrating. So I was concerned that I might not make it all the way. I didn't want to have the same problem with the new pair of shoes happen like with the old pair of Topos. So when we got to Leavenworth, I went in, and they're Sportsmen. I can't recommend them enough. They have very competitive pricing, very good selection. I tried to get Solomon's again, but they didn't have them in my size. So I went ahead and went for some Keens, and that's this pair right here. And they've held up great. But I did have a problem, and it wasn't their problem or a problem with the shoe, because I got size 12, like my other shoes, and they felt so comfortable. So man, these feel great. But they were turned out to be just a little bit too roomy, and I couldn't quite get them tightened up the way I needed to. So I wore them for a bit, and then I continued to wear my Topos a lot more than the Keens, because I could walk right through the water and these would dry out. These were waterproof. I just tried to be a lot more careful where I stepped, how I stepped. And I'd say 80% of those remaining miles was done in the Topos, and then in town, and then for about 20% of the miles I used the Keens. So Keens, like them, really good shoes, but again, you got to make sure you get your sizing right. So long story, even longer. Really, really important. You shake down your gear before you get out on the trail, regardless of what kind of gear it is, and especially with your shoes, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shoes, counting the ones that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pairs of shoes, and then there was that other pair that got credited back. 6 shoes at $150 a pop. That's $900. So that's a lot of money you're going to spend on shoes if you go through that many. Some people will get through them in 3 pairs of shoes or whatever, and that's good, but still, it's a lot of money. So make sure you know what works for you before you get out on the trail, and make sure you have the sizing right. And then also understand what your options are going to be if you do have problems with your shoes. How are you going to handle it? And if it's under a scenario like mine with REI, that wouldn't work for me. And other people might want to carry their shoes for the 100 miles or whatever and go through the logistics process. Me, I want to keep it simple, stupid. I just want to, hey, let me take pictures. Let's not send failed product all over, and I'll get you the data that you need, and then you guys can evaluate and decide whether or not it's worthy of a credit. So think about those things. And I will say I will stand behind Solomon despite the one product failure I had. I'm really happy with their shoes. And kind of an interesting sidebar to all this is Riverdance was wearing the same hiking shoe that I had, and he had a size 12, and he got over 500 miles out of his, and it started to tear on him, but then it blew out across there. And so I was like, I mean, it's a similar experience to what I have. Let me look at your shoe. And we looked at it very carefully. it was manufactured in the same plant, in the same month. It was the exact same shoe and it was the same size. So I kind of think that it just may have been a bad batch of material or a problem with their tooling or something. But that was just, I kind of found that interesting that, oh, okay, that all seemed to tie back to that one place. And that they were made back in 2022, so I don't think anybody else buying is going to have to worry about that batch and that date. Then last, this is one of Rumble's shoes. It's an Oboz. They're very similar to the Keens in weight and functionality and everything else. And he had the same delamination problem on the Oboz that I had on my Topos. So keep that in mind if you're into the Oboz shoes. He's had that happen multiple times with him. He managed to squeeze about 500 miles out of his Oboz, but he was gluing the heck out of these, and he would have to re-glue it multiple times during the life of that shoe. But he didn't have much choice of where he could replace them because of where we were with those segments. So that was one of his experiences I wanted to share with you all. Well, that's it on the shoes. Next up, I'm gonna take a little break here, and I'm gonna go over the other clothing that I used on the trail. Hopefully that helps. Any questions or whatever, throw them in the comments. Share your experiences. Thanks a lot. Okay, everybody, we are back to talk about our PCT clothing for no filter. So I'll approach this with kind of chronologically again, and I'll go over what we started with. And what I started with was geared towards cold weather. If you remember, it was like day 3, we're post-holing in Mount Laguna. So I kind of went prepared for the snow, very much like I would have been going into the Sierras, with the exception of, I didn't get crampons until we got to Kennedy Meadows South. So from a hiking standpoint, what I would normally do is I'd be hiking I'd have Injinji liners, darn tough socks, compression shorts, and I'd have my convertible pants, or the actual pants I used when we started were some Columbia, and they weren't convertible, very lightweight polyester, and I wore those until Kennedy Meadows and pretty much wore them out. So they didn't make it back to Atlanta, but they were very comfortable, and it was something I had used a fair amount on the AT as well. So that's what I did there on the lower part of my body. And I also used Dirty Girl gaiters some of the time, but I ended up sending these home, and then they got back into the mix once I got to Said Valley. Upper body, I had an REI long sleeve sun shirt, and it survived pretty well. It's a little discolored, and I had some repairs done to it after I got back to Atlanta, so this can still be in the mix for the future. So I would wear all those things with the sun shirt, and then more often than not, when the temperatures were cooler, I'd have on my Arc'teryx hoodie with a quarter zip, and it also has the shoulder pocket here. And one of the other things that I really liked, it's got like a built-in balaclava. So you put your head on up through here, and you can have this either behind you, or you can pull it over like a balaclava, and it can come up over your face and give warmth or protection from the sun. And so primarily, I would wear the sun shirt with this on top. As I began to heat up, I'd pull this thing off, stuff it in the back of my pack, and keep hiking in that other gear. So that was my primary approach to things. And then sometimes I would sleep in this. That top zip pocket was great for putting my phone in, etc. If I didn't want to have it in the accessories pouch on my backpack. And then I would have my floppy hat. If needed, and rarely, I didn't usually wear gloves when I'm hiking, but if I needed them, I had some fleece gloves. So that's primarily what I had when I was hiking. If it was rainy or windy and the wind was becoming problematic, I had a Versalite rain jacket from Montbell. Really, really lightweight. It's not cheap, but it's lightweight. It has the pit zips, and it's got the pockets on either side that are up high enough that you can still get into them when you're wearing your pack. And that's generally where I keep my rain mitts if I was carrying those, or I keep my gloves in there. And I also had the Montbell Versalite rain pants. They did a very good job for me, very lightweight. They took a bit of a beating. You probably saw that in the videos. You know, the glissading did not go well for me in that respect, but these made it all the way through. I taped them up, and they're going to stay in the mix. They're not done yet. And then I also had my Mountain Ghost Whisperer Mountain Hardwear puffy, very lightweight, very comfortable. This went the whole way with me on the PCT. This is not a product failure, it's a operator error failure. If you recall, my arm went across where my stove was, and poof, it burnt that part off, so I just taped it up. So those are the primary things for clothing. Now, I carried a lot of clothing, and I want to go through that now, and keep in mind that the temperatures got very cold at times during this segment. So I was very conscious about wanting to be able to layer as needed, and also wanting to be able to always be in dry clothes at night. So for my sleeping wear, or my camp wear, if you will, and also as a part of the layering that I may or may not do, and trying to make sure I had dry clothes, I had an extra pair of shorty underwear that I could use in hiking as needed, or it was a pillowcase, or it was just backup underwear. So I had that. I also had a Smart Wool Merino 150, very lightweight, very comfortable, somewhat worn out because I took this on the AT as well. But I would use this in my system. It was something that maybe was just a little colder than I wanted. I could throw it under my REI sun shirt, or REI with the REI sun shirt, and being underneath my micro fleece Arc'teryx. So that was an item I had in the mix. I also had another Smart Wool, not Smart Wool, but Wool 250, Merino Wool 250, long sleeve that I could use in the mix. This is mainly what I slept in. I would sleep in this, and then the Arc'teryx might go over top of that depending upon what the temperatures were going to be like. And then I had, this isn't the actual pair I had, the other ones I haven't gotten back yet, but I had a Smart Wool long johns for the bottom, and then I had my fleece REI camp pants. And so I could get to camp, and even if I had been sweating out in my hiking gear, I could just transform my, right away, get into completely dry gear that for the most part would keep me warm, whether I'm in my tent or out of my tent, while we're in a camp scenario, or in that matter, if we got into town. So a lot of clothes. And it was one of those things that frustrated me when I was looking at the weight I was carrying, but at the end of the day, it made sense to me because it assured me I would stay warm. When we headed out of the Sierras, I tweaked things a little bit for that segment. I sent my fleece pants home because I just figured between the rain pants, the long johns, and my hiking pants, I'd be able to get through everything okay. I kept the 250, I believe, but I sent the 150 back home. I just did some things to try to lighten my load a little bit. I had my fleece balaclava, which I kept, and I kept my buff, which also doubled as a pillowcase. Then after we bounced forward to Said Valley, and I was pretty sure at that point we're done with any substantial amount of snow. I got very happy because I knew I was going to get rid of stuff. So at that point in time, my fleece was able to go. My fleece long pants, that is, camp pants. My long johns were gone. I didn't have those anymore. My 150 was gone. You've seen the trend here. My 250 long sleeve top was gone. My backup underwear, gone. The puffy stayed with me the whole way. My rain gear stayed with me the whole way. I swapped out, I got rid of my sealskin socks. I didn't talk about these much, but I use these on occasion where if my boots had wetted out or I really wanted a fresh, dry pair of socks and I thought I might be going through some water and issues like that, I would wear these. But at that point, they were gone. I did send one of my pairs of wool socks home and replaced it with something I'll show you here in a second. And I hated the part with my Arc'teryx, but I sent it home too because I wasn't going to need that weight anymore. So a lot of stuff gone. Oh, I sent my REI sun shirt home. So big gear change out happened. So at that point in time, I had shipped to me, I had my REI sun shirt, and I had actually brought that back with me, if I remember correctly. I think I brought that back with me and had it at Kennedy Meadows heading out. I think I did, I don't recall exactly. But at this point in time at Say Valley, my REI sun shirt, I had my Nike running shorts or hiking shorts. It has the built-in liner, so you don't need the underwear. Very comfortable, fast drying, pockets on either side. I also had a zip pocket in the back, which wouldn't hold too much. I could probably jam my camping wallet in there. And I modified the pocket on one side, added Velcro to it. So if I had something in that pocket, it would help prevent it from coming out. But these religiously became my go-to. I would hike in this, and then I would sleep in my compression shorts. If it got a little colder, I might put my pants on. And I tried to keep the pants and the compression shorts for camping only or in town. And I tried to use these exclusively for hiking. If I needed another layer on my pants, on my legs, I would go ahead and throw my rain pants on. I switched to primarily using, a ankle high and Genji toe socks when I was wearing the shorts, and had the matching set. So there's a distinctive left and right outer sock that goes with those. And I primarily hiked in those. I might swap to the other ones if I was wearing my long pants, but primarily hiked in those after that. The fleece gloves went home. What I did instead is I did have some glove liners shipped to me that I used, and eventually I had rain mitts shipped to me, which I used as well. The balaclava, that went home, woohoo! And I just used the buff as needed if I needed some warmth on my head. And then this also served as my pillowcase over the stuff sack when I slept with it. And then later, last couple weeks, I added a long sleeve undergarment just because I was getting a bit chillier sometimes at night, and the shirt that I was sleeping in, where did it go? I had a short sleeve, basically a 200 weight smart wool merino shirt that I slept in, and that was added to the mix. I don't see where that is right now. I must have left it somewhere. But I would sleep in that, and if I needed to, I would add this as well to the mix. And then I added in the no filter hat that my cousin had sent me, because I could use this in conjunction with my sun shirt with the hood, and that would keep the sun off my ears and provide adequate protection for my face. Whereas occasionally I would still use the floppy, but this thing flopped around a lot, so I didn't use it as much. So you can see once I got to the warmer temperatures, things dramatically changed from a clothing standpoint. I went much more minimalistic, and I took a lot of pounds out of my pack at that point in time, and that made me a very, very happy camper. So I think one of the things I haven't shown you, and I don't have them here, is the waterproof Outdoor Research gaiters that I used. And they were waterproof, they're kind of calf high, and they did a really good job, as I mentioned before, on the shoe video, keeping the water out of my boots for the most part. I don't have those here to show you that those were in the mix until Say Valley. So that's the scoop for now. Next up, I don't know if it'll be in this actual video or a separate video, but I'm going to go over the big three: backpack, tent, sleeping bag, And then also we'll be going over the other miscellaneous gear that I had, cooking, electronics, and things like that. Thanks for watching, and you all have a good one. Okay, well, hi y'all. Welcome back. I'm going to go over in this segment a little bit of my miscellaneous gear. So kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, but just bear with me. So first I'd like to go over my stove. That's the Jetboil Mini, and so I took on the PCT. It has a, of course, the burner. Opens up like yay, goes on top of here. This sets on top. It doesn't lock, but it sets on top of there. And then of course it has the lid. The reason I chose this system was because the Jetboil has this heat exchanger in there, so it's a lot more efficient than typical like pocket rocket and stoves like that. Knowing I was going to be in colder weather, I wanted my stove to be a little bit more efficient, and so that's why I chose it. And it also, it's got a neat little stowage thing. Your fuel canister snaps into the lid, so you can drop your lighters in there for lighting it, and then you just pop this dude in there like that. Burner sits in there. This sits in there like that. There, Bob's your uncle. It all goes together real nicely. Pros: efficiency because of the heat exchanger. You know, the lid that pours. Integral holding handle. And it's large enough to actually cook in. A lot of backpackers, myself included, often just use their cooking system just to heat water, and they pour that into their dehydrated meal and let it rehydrate. I would actually cook my ramen in here, and I could add mashed potatoes, do a ramen bomb, or doctor it up however I wanted to. I could do a lot of cooking directly in this pot because of its size. It's you know, right about 32 ounces is about what it can hold, so that's pretty large. The downside, it holds about 32 ounces, so it's kind of big. It's I like to refer to it as a little bit clunkier and heavier than I would like. On the AT, the system I use, I just had a Snow Peak 600 milliliter titanium cup / pot, and it's significantly smaller, lighter. I had an aftermarket lid for it, and it also has handles like this. So I prefer this for backpacking when I'm not going to be in the adversely cold conditions. So if I'm doing my summer hiking, I'm probably going to do this, and I'll just have to deal with any of the meals that I cook in it that might be too large, and maybe do it in 2 batches. But for the PCT, this served me very well, so I'm happy with that choice. From a utensil standpoint, this was it. You know, it's my long-handled spoon. I didn't use a fork per se. And I also added into the mix for this go-around, I bought an extra coupler, that away from my blue shirt so you can see it, an extra coupler that you can just screw on to a bottle, or in this case, I cut the top off a bottle. Guess that works there. Put the coupler on there. That became my funnel for my protein drinks. So I'd fill this full, say two-thirds full water, put my little funnel on there, scoop it out of my protein mix, dump it all in there, cap that thing back off, shake it up, and I was good. So I did a protein drink as a part of my breakfast routine every morning. And then I got to where I also did a protein mix recovery drink at night with dinner. And you shake it up and you're good. And then you don't really care if this thing gets crushed down and beat up in your bag, because it's just a funnel. And they're easy to replace. You just find an old bottle, cut the top off of it, and you're good to go. From a water filtration standpoint, Sawyer, as you all probably saw in the videos, Sawyer coupled with the C-Knock. Real happy with the system. It's easy. If your filter's in really good shape, you can just screw the filter right onto the bottle, hang it, and let gravity do the work of the filtration. As these become a little bit more compromised from silt and other things, you have to do more squeezing. I got a little overzealous on my squeezing, and I ended up with a baby bump on my C-knock because I was just squeezing the bottle way too hard. I think it was about to blow out, but that's probably an operator issue, not a problem with the C-knock. I tried to get better about flushing out my filter, and I got some good tips from the Sawyer people. They said just you can flush it, but also it's good to soak it for 2 hours in really warm water, not boiling hot, but warm water for 2 hours, and then flush it, and then also soak it for half an hour in vinegar, and then flush it like crazy. And their claim is it should get you back pretty close to 99%. I'm not that patient usually, so I do what I can. There's a lot of the backpackers, we end up tapping it while you're flushing it. You know, tap the sides, and that can help get some of the bigger chunks coming out. But happy with the system. I'm going to endeavor to do a better job with flushing, etc., over time, and see if that makes a difference in my section hikes going forward. So that's my water filtration system. I kept everything in this. It's actually a vegetable bag from Sprouts. It's a finer mesh than the mesh that comes with the Sawyer bag, and I use that at times to kind of filter out larger chunks of debris when I was filling up my dirty water bag, because the mesh on the Sawyer bag is pretty big, so lots of stuff would come in. So it's just another trick I tried to use when I could. So that's the water system. Food storage. I had my bear hanging bag with the rope kit and everything else. This is the same one I took throughout the AT. As you can tell, it's been taking a beating. Somewhat problematic at times trying to find a place to hang on the PCT. I think going forward, I will go probably exclusively with the bear canister on the PCT, or maybe Ursacs. I need to look into those a little bit more, but on the AT, depending upon the section hikes that I'll do, I may still use this. If there's a bear hang or if there's bear boxes, this is fine. Personal ditty bag. So I had a personal ditty bag that I would keep. It's waterproof, so it would go down inside my bag. What did I carry? Okay. A Gerber micro tool and nail clippers, first aid bandages, some bug bite aid. There's a little bit more bandages. One of the things that I took on the AT and I bought after I got on the PCT is a Benadryl cream. So if you get bug bites and you get a lot of itching, it can be really difficult trying to go to sleep at night if you're itching like crazy. I mean, it's everything you can do to keep from scratching it. So this was great. It came in, if I had bug bites at all, I put this stuff on there. It take away the itching, and that was no more problem. So I swear by that. I also carried, from a quasi-emergency standpoint, penicillin. If you do get some type of infection that's treatable by penicillin, and you're going to be out there 4 or 5 days, you could go ahead and take this as a means of getting a jump on it before you get into town. Never had to use it, but I did take comfort in knowing if I needed to, it was there. And even though I had the waterproof bag, I still I throw everything inside another zip up bag just in case. Try to keep things dry. And then I had my bug stuff. The bug stuff usually was in the side pouch of my backpack, along with the bug net, so I'd have easier access to them. So from a repair kit standpoint, just some basics: thread and needle, along with some monofilament thread, repair kit for the air mattress, zip ties, a little bit of tenacious tape, repair tape for my Z-Packs tent, and then some glue, safety pins, twist tie, and a couple of little items. Those could come in handy. And I did have some larger zip ties, not zip ties, those giant kind of gear ties that I had as well. And I kept those in the mix for a while, and then when I got to where I knew I wasn't going to need them, I just sent them home. Also my personal ditty kit, Luco tape, swear by it. I put it on every time I started a segment. I'd put it on my feet and it would last 5 or 6 days. And then, when I get done with that segment, I'd apply a new batch, and I generally just put it right around my ankles, unless I developed another hot spot, in which case I would put it there till that healed, and I would test and see if that was necessary anymore. Minimal amount of soap. You can always refill at hiker boxes. There's always soap there. Earplugs, vitamin I, toothbrush, toothpaste. And then I did carry dental floss and Advil PM. I found Advil PM was a really good way to take care of some of the minimal aches and pains and help me if I was having any difficulty going to sleep. I won't say I did it every night, but I did take advantage of it quite often. Next up is this is basically my toilet ditty. So toilet paper, wet wipes, and then I had some butt paste. Some people use Body Glide. I found that at the beginning of a segment, if I would just apply some butt paste to the appropriate areas, that I'm usually good for 4 or 5 days, wouldn't have to do it again. If there's excessive sweating going on because of the terrain, the temperatures and everything else, I might have to do a second application, 3 days in or something, just to make sure I'm not getting a rash on my butt. But been doing that since the AT and it worked great. I also keep in my hand sanitizers in here, so I always have it accessible when I head off to the woods to do my business. From the standpoint of cat holes, I got rid of my deuce of spades and decided to go ahead and just use my trekking pole to dig a holes where needed. And sometimes I would just use a stick. I found that was very effective. And even if my tent was set up and I had to go do something, I could just pull one of my trekking poles out of the tent scenario and take it with me and then come back, and it's real easy just to put it back up and your tent's golden again. The only time that would be problematic is if it's raining and you do that, you're going to have rain getting in your tent. But I did encounter that on the PCT, not so much of an issue there. From a micro spike standpoint, I started out with Catula, and then when we switched to crampons, I had these sent forward where I was going to pick them up. Problem was, when we bumped up, we didn't bump up to South Lake Tahoe where I sent these. So I was unable to get them, and eventually they sent the box back home to here in Atlanta. So I've got them now, but I wasn't able to get them forwarded up. So at that time I switched to Hills Hound. We got those en route to our bump up point, and we weren't sure if we need them, but I wanted to have them just in case. Probably used them 3 times. The Catula are good. They just pull right on over your boots, and I was very happy with those. The Hills Hound were a little bit different, and actually I like them a bit more. They were a bit more robust. The spikes, I think these are half, and I think on the Catula I believe they were 3/8. And it also had this strap, so once you put them on, you could use this Velcro strap through the rubber to make sure that if you start post holing, did a better job of keeping the micro spikes on your boots. It wouldn't get pulled off when you came out of the post hole. Although I never had that happen with the Catulas because they were a very snug fit. It was a feature that I did like. It gave me some comfort. I'd recommend both of these. The price points weren't that different between the Catula and the Hills Hound, so take a look at it, see what you think works best for you. And then also the snow baskets. I kind of laughed when I bought my trekking poles on the AT, had to replace the ones I had. I pitched the snow baskets, and then when I was preparing for the PCT, I realized, I probably ought to have these. So I bought a set, put them in my pack, and somewhere late in the game, it was after we'd already flipped north and we had some minor snow issues to deal with. I lost one. But if I'm going to go out winter hiking, make sure you have snow baskets. It makes all the difference in the world. And then miscellaneous kind of gear, my bandana, which I'm sure if you watched our videos, you saw that strapped on my chest strap. That did everything. You blow your nose, wipe your hands, dry your legs, get condensation off the inside of your tent, whatever. I did have a small camp towel, which I could use in conjunction with the bandana depending upon what my activities were. But I clean up my legs every night, usually. I'd find if I had a water source. If not, I'd try to carry enough in to wash my legs off so it'd be more comfortable sleeping. And I'd use this to dry my legs. I might use this to get the condensation off the tent in the morning. And something I didn't go over earlier is I did take an inflatable pillow. This is a Cocoon. And I started out with this, but I did send it home when I got to Kennedy Meadows South. I found I just go ahead and I wanted to shed some of the weight, and I could just use a stuff sack instead of this. And it worked out fine. It was kind of a luxury item at first, and decided didn't need that luxury. Sun gloves. This was the second pair that I had. These are Outdoor Research, and they take a beating. You're going to wear them out. These are kind of beat. But when we had especially when we were up in the Sierra, and then also in the burn areas and things, I wanted to make sure I had sun gloves on to sort of protect my hands. But at times I wouldn't wear them, but I paid a lot of attention. If it did look like my hands were getting too much sun, I'd put these on. I just kept them in the hip pouch on my backpack, so it was always easily accessible. Took a piece of Gossamer 1/4-inch foam pad, and that was my butt pad. It weighed a tiny bit less than the Z pad, and it was material that I had on hand at home, so I just cut a piece of that and used it. And last item on miscellaneous gear is the electronics. And I had a PowerAd 10,000 milliamp and an Anchor 5,000 milliamp. I intended to have two 10,000 ones, but when I headed out, the second one hadn't arrived yet, so I just went with 15,000 the entire way. I never ran out of power. There were times when I got pretty low on a 7-hour segment, but I did fine with it. I had a 2-port USB adapter that I could plug in for charging. That's what most backpackers do. They'll either have a 2 or a 4-port USB one to do, but if you go to hostels and things like that, there's almost always multiple ports available that even if you didn't have that, you should be able to plug in somewhere. I had a Black Diamond headlamp. Did really well for me. I don't remember a specific model, but it is different in that the battery comes out. You pop the battery out, and it goes into this little charging station, which you take your USB cord and plug it in with the micro adapter, and that'll charge up your battery. One of the things that I didn't like about it is you had to have this separate piece to go do that. But that said, you take that battery out of here and put it in there to charge. If you've got 3 AAAs, you'd be able to stick them in here and this thing would operate. So the thinking is that the 3 AAAs are your backup, and your primary is the battery that you charge with this. So you could protect against running out of juice and not having a backup easily available. I lost the AAAs early on in the game. I don't know where they ended up at a hostel somewhere, but I never ended up having to fall back on anything. So I just kept recharging from my battery packs, and I was okay. But good headlamp. I had to get used to the functionality of it, the settings, the dimming piece, the flashing light piece, the wide beam, narrow beam, and I had switched to this halfway through the hike. And in a way that was good. I got something that was a bit brighter, but it took me a while to get it all figured out, where I was already dialed into what my other headlamp would do and how it did it. So just word of the wise, again, know your stuff before you get on the trail. I carried, rather than Bluetooth headphones, I had the ones I could hardwire and plug into my phone. I did that for weight and also to have less things that were relying upon my batteries for recharging. I didn't listen to stuff that much, so it wasn't an issue. The only downside is that oftentimes when I wanted to listen is when I'm in my tent at night and I'm recharging my phone. If I'm recharging my phone, I can't plug these in and listen to music at that point in time. So each time that happened, I was like, ah, darn it. So that's that scoop. That's it for the gear. And I will leave you all with that. Hope you have a good one. And either as an addition to this video or in another one, we'll be going over the sleep system, backpack, and tent. Take care. Okay, well that's kind of a wrap for the first video. Hope it was helpful to you. I do have one correction I know that I do need to make, and I was watching one of the videos and I talked about the battery packs that we use, and it was good for 7 hours. No, that system, it carried me for 7 days on that segment, not 7 hours. So that's just one correction I wanted to make. And then I want to add one thing that I forgot to talk about, and that was my bug net. I used that bug net also to help me manage my clothes when it was really cold weather. So if I had wet clothes or really cold clothes, I'd bring them in the tent, hang up my hiking clothes like that, and then during the night I would take those either damp clothes or cold clothes, stuff them all inside the bug net, and pull that into my sleeping system with me to quilt so I could warm up my clothes and help dry them out. It was just a little trick that I employed that I thought was helpful, and I've shared that with a couple other hikers, and they said, oh, that's a pretty good idea. So I knew I'd forgotten that. I wanted to add that in. All right, so that's it. You all take care, and then look for the video on the big 3. Happy trails.